Hi guys, so I'm going to record for you the first page of the story for the week, Horse Snake, page 1, 2, 3. So here we go. And this is located in the schedule below everything. Make this bigger. All right, so at the top, literary analysis, narrative nonfiction. Narrative nonfiction tells true stories about events that really happen. Remember, nonfiction is true. To make these events interesting, writers use many of the elements found in short stories, such as a conflict or struggle between opposing forces, suspense or the feeling of excitement or tension that makes you eager to find out what happens next. So narrative, the term narrative means story, okay? So narrative nonfiction is true, but remember stories have the elements of plot, they have conflicts. So narrative nonfiction, so this is true, but some of the events may not be true. They use it to make it interesting to the readers. Narrative nonfiction. I know you do narrative writing in English class, so make sure that you remember that term narrative. It means story. I'm going to try and make this bigger. I'm not sure why it won't get bigger. I'll try that again. Hi, here I am. And we will hide the controls. There we go. That's much better. The horse snake is a type of narrative nonfiction called a memoir. I think that we've talked about memoirs before. A memoir is in which the writer tells true stories from his or her life. So the memoir, it's not the whole story, but it's one story of a person's life. And I'm writing this just because this is active reading. This is what I do when I read, because I want to remember this one story of a person's life. As you read, notice how the author explains the conflict and creates suspense. Now, there are different types of conflicts, and I don't know if you remember what they are, but the conflicts are man versus man, man versus self, man versus nature, and man versus society. Okay? Reading skill. We talked about this last week. I hope that you remember what the root word cron means, because eventually you're going to have a root word quiz. Cron means time. The root itself means time. So whenever you see the root cron somewhere, this probably deals with time. Chronological order. Often writers of narrative nonfiction present events in the same order in which they happened in real life. This is called chronological order or time order. So chronological means to be put into order of time. To recognize time order, look for clue words that tell when events occurred, such as a few seconds later, shortly after midnight, or the next day. As you read, use a timeline to track the order of events and the time of day each event occurred. Now you don't need to use a timeline, but I do want you to use your active reading, which is marking it up. And some of you are new to my class, and active reading stands for ask questions. The C stands for make connections. The T stands for track down. The I refers to making inference or infer. The V stands for visualize, which means to make a picture in your head. And then the E is eureka. Okay, that's what I call active reading. Other teachers call it talk to the text. It's the same thing. I just like these because these are the reading skills that I can see that you're doing or what you're missing. Down below, let's look over the vocabulary and context. The author uses the listed words to help show the fear caused by a dangerous snake. To see how many you know, complete each phrase with the correct word from the list. So I'll read the words so you can hear how they are pronounced, and then I want you to just number them. So we're going to go assume is number 1. Nocturnal is number 2. Stealthily is number 3. Gate is number 4. Now I recognize this as being a homophone because it sounds like another word that I know that said gate, but it's spelled differently and has a different meaning. Number 5 is petrify, and number 6 is succumb. So write the numbers in the spaces here where the vocab word fills it in correctly, and I will post a video later with the answers. All right, so like what we always do, we are going to read about the author. The author, I don't know how to say his name. It's probably Chinese, or looks like Vietnamese. Village life. Growing up in a small village in Vietnam, this author was tending rice fields by the time he was 6 years old. He also watched over his family's water buffaloes, including his favorite, Tank. There were no stores, cars, or televisions in the village. For entertainment, the author, his family, and his neighbors listened to one another tell stories. When he was older, he received a scholarship to Saigon University, and he left home. He planned to return to his village as a teacher. Distant memories. Instead, he was drafted into the Army of South Vietnam in the 1960s. After being paralyzed by a bullet, he traveled to the United States for treatment. He never returned to Vietnam. However, his memoirs, poems, and plays brought his memories of Vietnam and the stories he heard there to audiences in the United States. Wildlife in the Highlands. The horse snake is a chapter in this author's memoir, The Land I Lost. The memoir is set in his childhood village, which was surrounded by jungle on one side and mountains on the other. He describes the realities of living close to fascinating and dangerous animals. Okay, so we know that this author came from a different culture, came from a different land. Obviously, doesn't have it as nice as what we have it here in the United States. So I'm anxious to hear about the horse snake. I've not read this story. I don't know anything about it, so we'll learn together.